What's up? We're rocking. So we are on to our next review today. We're going to be checking out The Fog, you freaks. Released in 1980. This is a John Carpenter film, an underrated John Carpenter film, I might add. So yeah, we're going to get into it, snap some necks and cash some checks. If you know, you know. While you're here, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. And let's get rocking. So, positives with The Fog, man. Dude, I love this movie. I'm just going to say that. I love this movie. I love The Fog. I think it's an incredibly underrated horror film from the 80s. I don't hear it get talked about nearly enough as it should. When people talk about Carpenter, obviously they talk about Halloween. Obviously they talk about The Thing. You have a lot of people that love Christine. You'll get your Escape from New York fans. But Carpenter has some films that kind of go under the radar a little bit that I don't think get talked about as much as they should. The Fog is absolutely one of them. In my opinion, this is a banger, man. I love The Fog. So I'm going to get into, what I love about it and why I think it's just a great horror film from 1980. One of the positives for me is the opening. That opening scene, this campfire telling ghost stories, and we were introduced to the mythology of these ghost pirates and the events that happened, centuries past, or to the prior generations of the townspeople. Just that whole opening scene, the way it's shot, sets the tone, creates this looming atmosphere of this old folklore, and I love that. I love that setting. I love that specific subgenre within horror of ghost stories and campfires, because it resonates with me. I remember being a kid, going to summer camps and stuff like that. That's exactly what we did. And it was just, it was always a lot of fun. So yeah, I love that opening scene and it's very important for the film because it sets and creates the lens by which you're supposed to view this movie through. And that is this mythological folklore, but also creates and establishes the tone, the atmosphere of the film that's going to be pervasive and persistent throughout the rest of the film. So great opening, great atmosphere and tone throughout the whole film. Carpenter just handles that so well, and so many of his films, but nails it here in The Fog. The cinematography by Dean Cundey, who was the same DP on Halloween. I think was he the DP on The Thing? I think he was. I think he was the DP on The Thing. I could be wrong. I'd have to double check after I'm done here, but I'm pretty sure he did the cinematography in The Thing as well. But he was the DP on The Fog. And dude, I'm a big fan of Dean Cundey, of his work. I think he's an underappreciated cinematographer and DP. Does a great job here, man. Just the blues, the shadow, the ways that he's able to create visuals in the dark at night. Just create some beautiful imagery in this movie, man. The silhouettes of the ghost pirates in the blue fog in the back, the glowing red eyes. I mean, just so iconic. Like, it's just awesome imagery of the way that Cundey moves the camera, the slow camera movement, all very purposeful, that continues to kind of develop that atmosphere, that tone, that looming presence that's there. I love the cinematography in this movie, man. And just I love so much of Dean Cundey's work. And he does a great job at making the cinematography match and the tone and the atmosphere. Like he's really creating that with the cinematography as well, and it matches that opening monologue and the premise of the film. Speaking of premise, I love the premise here. You know, the story that I think a lot of people miss with The Fog. Some people I've heard reviews and stuff of that do this movie or talk about this film. I think a lot of them miss the premise of the film and what this film is really about. And it's one reason I actually really enjoy this movie. It's really a premise about past sins of the townspeople returning upon a new generation. It's like that old proverb, the sins of the father shall be visited upon the son. That's exactly what happens in this movie. We're told about this injustice that occurred by the prior generation of townspeople, and that sin was never atoned for. And so what happens is that those sins come back to revisit this new generation of townspeople in the form of the fog, which represents justice. The true protagonist of this film is the fog. It actually is the fog. A lot of people miss that. They think the fog and the ghost pirates are the bad guys. The fog is actually the protagonist of this film. It represents the justice that was essentially not upheld and from the crime and from the sins of the prior generation. So it comes back to atone for those sins and to uphold justice on this new generation of townspeople. And so I love that premise, man. And the ghost pirates are the agents of that justice. And the premise really it is kind of this returning justice that is coming to take souls. The fog is really kind of just the mechanism. The fog acts as a moral correction in the film. That's basically what it does. It's a mechanism by which the justice kind of reveals itself, and the fog represents a moral correction, righting a wrong. Kind of like The Crow. If you've seen The Crow, you know, Brandon Lee, great film. He kind of represents the same thing. I'm always fascinated by those horror movies where the monster or the darker character is actually the protagonist and is actually the hero. I can think of another example from a movie, I think from the 70s, The Night of the Scarecrow. That's another example where the monster, the scary person in the movie is actually the protagonist, is actually the one that comes back to right the wrong that had been done. And that's exactly what the fog is. The fog is the justice that is coming back to right the wrong of the sins of the prior townspeople. So I love that premise and that concept. Man, I love the pacing. I think the pacing and the plot development are handled really well. The Carpenter does a really good job at developing the plot along the way through clues that characters find and discover. That leads to another plot development point throughout the film. The pacing is really good. Carpenter does a great job handling the tension in this movie. The scene where the fog is coming for, you know, the house where the DJ's son is, and she's trying to talk over the radio to someone who can hear her to go save her son, protect her son. Some really good moments of tension there. The third act, when all the main characters are kind of locked into the church office area with the priest. Again, some really good tension. Carpenter's just a master of that. He's a master at elevating simple concepts and premises to a very to the maximum level, and he does that with The Fog. And it's so good, man. I love this film. The performances by the characters, I also think they come across very honest and very committed. And that's something I really like. You know, you have quite frankly, you have a lot of people that were in Halloween. This was just released a couple years after Halloween came out. So you have Jamie Lee Curtis. You have Annie from Halloween. I forget her name right now, but she's in this one. You have Sheriff Brackett in this film playing another a character. You obviously you have a lot of the Halloween crew. Tommy Lee Wallace as the production designer and the editor in this film. Dean Cundy as the cinematography. Deborah Hill as the co-writer and producer. So there's a lot of that Halloween, a lot of Halloween in this film. A lot of the same cast and crew. But I do like the characters, because I think the performances by the actors playing these characters are all very genuine. They feel very grounded, very real, a sense of sincerity in the performance that I like, and makes me warm to these characters. So yeah, those are all positives I have with the film. As far as negatives, I do think, for me personally, the kills feel under delivered. And what I mean by that is I get it was an intentional move. Carpenter was this, he kind of comes from that Hitchcockian type of approach to horror, where it shouldn't be the blood, the guts, and the gore that does the terrifying. It should be the suspense and the waiting, the ambiguity of the unknown, the nebulous plot that's being developed throughout the film. But the reason that I think in this film the lack of those more violent, gory kills is a problem for me, is because of what the theme of this film is, and because of what the premise of this film is. I feel like the premise of this fog acting as justice to come back and repay and atone for the sins of the prior generation of townspeople requires a more heavier blow of violence in it. And instead, we get a number of kills that are really off screen. We don't really even see them. And then a couple of on-screen kills that we get, they're interrupted by quick cuts, not very violent in any way. And I feel like that violence and the more graphic type of kills would have served the theme and the premise better in this film. So while I appreciate the intentional decision that Carpenter did, kind of withholding some of that graphic violence within the kills, I do feel like in this film it was needed. It's needed because of the premise and because of the concept and what the theme is about. It I think requires a more heavier punch of violence in order to really see and reward that justice for atoning for the sins of the past. So for me personally, and I'm not someone that's like, oh, we need the most graphic, gory kills in every movie. But for this film, again, because of what the story is about, I do think that was under-delivered. And it does kind of create a little bit of a disconnect for me, because I don't fully feel like that justice was paid off thematically, because Carpenter kind of he suppresses that graphic side of the kills. And then the other negative I have with this one is I feel like the climax in the third act probably could have been handled a bit better. And I understand what Carpenter was doing. I understand the narrative intent, but thematically it's a little ambiguous, because these ghost pirates are coming for the priest as the sixth and final victim, in order for justice to be atoned for, or the sins to be atoned for, and for justice to be upheld. It needs its sixth and final victim, and it's coming for the priest to be that victim. We get into this bunker there in the church, and then the priest gives the ghost pirates the golden cross, and then all of a sudden the pirates disappear. And it feels like there's relief. It feels like the tension is cut and done. And then the last scene, the ghost pirate comes back to kill the priest anyway. And it's like, wait a minute. If you came back to kill the priest, why didn't you just kill him after he gave you the golden cross? Why not just kill him right there on the spot? Instead, they kind of have this moment of the tension settling, relief kind of coming throughout the town, and then it goes right back to, oh, pirates back there again, just to give a quick kill to the priest. It almost feels forced, and not natural. It's not a full negative, just more of a partial negative, because it was intentful, and there was narratively a reason for that, for why they came back and killed the priest, because they did need that sixth victim, and it was the priest that needed to pay. But it was more thematically of how that final kill was handled, and how it was kind of directed, that whole last kind of sequence of the priest giving the pirates the golden cross, tension kind of settles, everything seems good, and then one last hoorah at the end where they come back. It's kind of one of those typical horror tropes where you think it's over, you think the fear is gone, and then there's always that one last scene to count on. And that's what it kind of felt like here. It felt a little bit forced. But yeah, I know one of the negatives that I've heard that people have with this film is that the characters feel very flat and feel very kind of just functional. They don't really feel developed. There's not really any character arcs here or whatever. That's not an issue for me, because my counter argument to that would be that's not what the story needed. This is not a character focused story. So the characters serve the story rather than the story serving the characters' needs. The characters serve the story needs. And here, the characters' purpose was to unveil the plot and provide us more information about the story and about the sins of the past generation, and how that justice is now coming back to visit these new townspeople. It was never about the characters in this film. It was about the story. It was about this folklore. It was about the injustice that had been done and that needed to be atoned for. So some movies need character arcs and strong character development because of what the story is. And it's some movies are character focused stories where the story is kind of simple, but its purpose is to serve the development of the characters and to arc the characters. Other films, the characters are there to serve the purpose of the story, to reveal plot mechanics, to develop the meaning and the premise of the story more. So, and that's what The Fog is. So for me personally, the criticism of, well, the characters feel underdeveloped, kind of flat, doesn't really hold up for me, because it's not what the film was about. It was never about the characters. They are there to serve the plot of the story, not the story or the plot serving them. So, but overall, I'm gonna give The Fog a 4.5 out of 5. Love this movie. I think it's one of the most underrated Carpenter films. And yeah, I have a blast with it every time. It's super rewatchable for me. I watch it probably every year or every other year, maybe. But yeah, 4.5 star rating for me. Great film. Just a couple of partial negatives that I do think could enhance this film to that 5-star level. But let me know your thoughts of The Fog in the comments section. And until next time, you freaks, kick it and rock on.